You know what's happening quietly all over the world right now. Millions of men are sitting in their own homes feeling like strangers. Their partner is furious about something that happened 3 years ago. He's being told he doesn't care, never listens, never shows up. He's apologizing for intentions he never had, defending feelings he never felt, and somehow losing arguments about his own reality. And then one day, he hits a wall. He doesn't scream. He doesn't flip the table. He just checks out. He stops arguing, stops defending himself, stops trying to win a game that never had rules he could see. And when he finally leaves, emotionally or physically, the chorus begins. Where have all the good men gone? Why don't men commit anymore? Why are men so emotionally unavailable? The answer is not mysterious. They didn't disappear. They withdrew. They realized this simple truth. If the cost of connection is my sanity, I'm not paying it. In this talk, I'm going to break down why more and more men are quietly walking away from relationships, why some of them are happier than they've ever been, and how to protect yourself without becoming bitter or hating women. This is not about blaming all women. This is about understanding patterns, power, and your responsibility to protect your own mind. We'll go through 1. Why arguments feel insane and unwinnable. 2. The hidden rules that leave men permanently wrong. 3. How culture trains men to absorb blame and silence themselves. Say 4. Why so many men are re-evaluating the relationship deal. 5. What really happens when a man turns his energy back on himself. 6. How to set a new standard for your life, with or without a relationship. Listen closely, not to fuel your anger, but to sharpen your awareness. 1. The argument. You can't win. Here's a simple test. Next time you're in a serious argument, try to label the topic in one clear sentence. You will notice something strange. It started with the dishes. Then it became about how you never help. Then her mother got involved. Then something you said in 2020 shows up. Then your tone becomes the main issue. Somehow you end up apologizing for how she feels about something that may or may not have happened the way she remembers it. By the end, you're not even sure what started it. You just know you feel drained, confused, and guilty. Here's why this happens. You think you're having a conversation. She's having an emotional event. You are trying to solve a problem. She is trying to regulate a feeling. When the goal is emotional regulation rather than clarity, the argument cannot have a clean endpoint. Why? Because facts can be resolved. Feelings cannot be proven wrong. So the topic keeps shifting. Every time you get close to a conclusion, the conversation moves again, from present to past, from actions to intentions, from events to your character. You go from, did I do this, to what kind of man are you, in 15 minutes. If you're not aware of this, you start playing on that emotional battlefield where logic has no traction. You raise valid points, you ask reasonable questions, and suddenly you're accused of gaslighting. You're told you don't get it, you're labelled cold or uncaring, so you shift from defending your position to defending your identity. Once you're doing that, the original topic is gone. You're stuck in an emotional maze. This is where most men snap internally, not in anger, in fatigue. They realise, it doesn't matter what I say. I am here to absorb emotion, not find truth. That realisation is the first crack in the relationship foundation. 2. The hidden rules that keep you permanently wrong. Behind a lot of modern relationships, there are unspoken rules most men never consciously see. You just feel them. You feel them when you're apologising, but you don't know what for. You feel them when you're defending yourself against feelings instead of actions. Let's pull 3 of these myths out into the light. Myth 1. The mind-reading requirement. This one is simple and poisonous. If you loved me, you would just know. Think about how insane that is in any other context. Imagine your boss refusing to give you tasks, then firing you for not doing them. You'd call that abusive, unprofessional, insane. But in relationships, this expectation is romanticized. You're supposed to detect what she wants without it being said, anticipate needs she hasn't admitted to herself, interpret tone, timing, and silence like a code book, And when you inevitably fail, it's not miscommunication. It's you don't care, or you never pay attention. The result? You live in low-level guilt. You constantly feel like you're disappointing someone. You lose confidence in your own judgment instead of, if you cared, you'd tell me clearly what you need. You get, if you cared, you'd read my mind. That's not love. That's a rigged standard. Myth 2. Emotional supremacy. This one is subtle and far more damaging. If I feel it, then it's true. Her emotions aren't just valid. They become the only reality allowed in the conversation. She feels disrespected, therefore you disrespected her. She feels unloved, therefore you don't love her. She feels unsafe, therefore you are unsafe. It doesn't matter what you intended. It doesn't matter what actually happened. The emotion defines the event. So you're no longer dealing with, what did you do? You're dealing with, what do I feel about what I think you did? How do you defend yourself against that? You can't. That's the point. You end up trying to prove your innocence to someone who has already decided that their feeling is the verdict. That is an impossible. Court to win in. Myth 3. Asymmetrical emotional rules. Here's another one you felt but maybe never articulated. She can cry, scream, slam doors, throw sharp words. She's just emotional. You raise your voice once. You're aggressive, scary, abusive. She can have breakdowns every month. That's hormones, stress, being overwhelmed. You have one bad day and snap slightly. You're unstable. This doesn't mean men are never abusive. Some absolutely are. But the rules are often skewed. Her emotions, her expressing herself. Your emotions, she use ammunition against you. You get trained into this role. Calm her no matter how she behaves. Control yourself no matter how she behaves. Never point out the double standard, or you'll be labelled the problem, so your emotions go underground. Your frustration becomes silence. Your honesty becomes self-censorship. This is how good men become quiet ghosts in their own relationships. 3. Culture. One side gets empathy, the other gets told to man up. These dynamics don't exist in a vacuum. They are backed by culture. Turn on almost any show and you see one pattern. A woman cries, struggles, or vents. She gets support. A man struggles. He's either mocked, ignored, or told to toughen up. Scroll social media. Woman post about feeling drained. You deserve better. Take care of yourself. We're here for you. Man posts about feeling drained. Be grateful. Don't be weak. Women have it harder. Male emotion is allowed only when it serves someone else. If it's not romantic, inspiring, or protective, it's inconvenient. So what do men do? They shut it off. They bury it in work, distractions, addictions. They stop talking, because every time they tried, it was either thrown back in their face or minimized. Now add modern divorce courts, false accusation horror stories, fathers losing access to their kids, and you get an obvious result. Men don't just feel misunderstood, they feel unprotected. Once a man believes that both the emotional world and the legal world are stacked against him, he gains a new clarity. Why would I walk willingly into a structure where I hold all the responsibility and almost none of the power? That's not bitterness. That's math. 4. The relationship deal. Men are finally questioning. Strip away the romance. Look at the raw structure of what many men are offered. Provide financially. Be emotionally available on demand. Take responsibility for her happiness. Absorb her bad days, moods, and projections. Be present, strong, understanding, and endlessly patient. And in exchange, what is guaranteed? Not lifelong loyalty. Not fair treatment in court if it ends. Not sexual consistency. Not peace in the home. If she becomes unhappy enough, for reasons that may have nothing to do with you, you can lose half your assets, a large share of your future income, daily access to your children, your home, your reputation if she decides to drag your name. When young men look at that deal, they don't think, I'm scared of commitment. They think, why would I commit to a system with downside everywhere and almost no guaranteed upside. So they shift. They choose work, gym, hobbies, friends, money, peace, over, walking on eggshells, arbitrary emotional storms, legal and financial risk, not because they hate women, but because the cost-benefit ratio of modern relationships as they've experienced them often doesn't make sense. 5. What happens when a man starts investing in himself? Instead, this is the part almost no one talks about. We're told if you're single, you must be lonely. If you're not in a relationship, something is wrong with you. A real man commits. But a lot of men who stepped away from relationships for a year or two discovered something very uncomfortable, for the system, not for them. They started to feel better. A man who spent a decade trying to keep a chaotic relationship alive told me, "I spent 10 years trying to make one person happy, and I was miserable. I've spent 2 years focused on my own life, and I feel incredible." What changed? His bank account grew. Nobody was draining it. His peace returned. Nobody was starting fights over nothing. His energy increased. Nobody was emotionally bleeding him. His time opened up. Nobody was demanding constant attention. He didn't become a woman hater. He became self-respecting. He stopped pouring into a bucket with a hole in it. He started pouring into himself. Career health, friendships, passions, skills. And he realized something that breaks a lot of social conditioning. I can be fulfilled without sacrificing myself to an unbalanced relationship. The emptiness he had tried to fill with approval and partnership was replaced by purpose and progress. That doesn't mean all relationships are bad. It means bad relationships are no longer his only option. 6. The spell, breaking, men waking up. From emotional fog. Once a man spends long enough outside of a toxic dynamic, something interesting happens. His memory clears. He looks back and thinks, "I cannot believe what I tolerated. I cannot believe how much I apologized for things I didn't do. I cannot believe how small my life became trying to avoid conflict." He sees that what he thought was love was often fear of being alone, addiction to approval, conditioning, to always fix and never receive. He sees that the partnership was, in reality, him, managing someone else's emotions, walking on eggshells, shrinking himself to keep the peace. And once he sees it, he cannot unsee it. Going back to that dynamic feels like voluntarily walking back into a cage he just unlocked. So he doesn't. He fights that urge that says, maybe this time will be different if I just try harder, and chooses something else, his own sanity. 7. Why shaming men is stopping working. When men start stepping back from relationships, the system responds predictably. You're bitter. You're scared of real intimacy. You're selfish. You can't handle a strong woman. These lines used to work. They weaponized a man's deepest insecurities. Am I a coward? Am I not man enough? Am I failing some duty? But the more men compare their life inside the wrong relationship versus their life outside of it, the less those shaming lines land. Ask a man who got his finances under control, got in shape, built a business or advanced his career, cut his stress in half, has his evenings back, sleeps peacefully. If he wants to go back to constant conflict and criticism because someone online called him weak, he will laugh. Because once you have felt the difference in your body between chaos and peace, words lose their power. You're no longer being controlled by fear of labels. You're guided by direct experience. 8. So what's the way forward? All of this leads to a simple fork in the road. You can stay plugged into the old script. Real men sacrifice, absorb, and endure. If you leave, you're a failure. Or you can set a new standard. I will not trade my mental health and self-respect for a title, a status, or someone else's comfort. Does that mean you must avoid women forever? No. It means you refuse to enter or stay in a dynamic that punishes your honesty, devalues your reality, makes you the permanent villain, demands endless sacrifice with no real reciprocity. Here's what a healthy standard looks like. Clear communication, not mind-reading games. Mutual emotional responsibility, not you as the sole shock absorber. Two realities in the room, not hers as the only truth. Shared sacrifice, not one-sided carrying. Peaceful majority of the time, not endless conflict, broken up by brief highs. If you can't find that, you are allowed to walk away. Not as an act of war, as an act of self-respect. 9. What you need to do as a man. You cannot control how anyone else feels, how courts are structured, what social media says about you, how culture portrays men. You can control where you invest your time and energy, what behaviours you tolerate, how you respond to unfair dynamics, whether you stay, negotiate, or leave. So here's your job. 1. Recognise manipulation when it shows up. When every argument becomes about your character instead of the actual issue, note it. When her feelings are used as a trump card against your reality, note it. 2. Refuse unwinnable frames. If the only way to prove you care is to accept blame for things you didn't do, reject that setup. You're allowed to say, I care about you, but that's not an accurate picture of what happened. 3. Demand reciprocity. Not perfection, not worship. Just, if I make effort, you make effort. If I listen, you listen. If I regulate myself, you regulate yourself. 4. Be willing to walk away, not in a rage, in clarity. Staying in something that breaks you is not loyalty, it's self-abandonment. 5. Build a life that is full, with or without a relationship. Your body, your money, your skills, your friendships, your mission, these are yours. Do not sacrifice them to someone who offers chaos in return. 10. Walking away is not losing. Every man needs to hear this clearly. Leaving a destructive relationship is not failure. Refusing a bad deal is not fear. Protecting your peace is not selfish. Saying no to a system that punishes you for existing is not weakness. You are not broken because you see that something around you is broken. The narrative that says a man only has value if he is in a relationship or marriage is outdated. Your value is in your integrity, in your discipline, in your mission, in how you treat people who treat you fairly. You are not here to be a permanent emotional sponge, a walking wallet, or a lightning rod for someone else's unresolved issues. You are here to live a life that means something to you. If a relationship amplifies that, good. If it destroys that, leave. Men are not done with women because they hate women. They are done with destroying themselves to keep dysfunctional dynamics alive. They are choosing their own well-being over someone else's temporary feelings, their own growth over someone else's comfort, their own sanity over someone else's expectations. And that is not the problem. That is the beginning of the solution. If you're a man listening to this and you've hit that breaking point, I want you to do 2 things. 1, be brutally honest about what your life looks like with this dynamic versus without it. 2, decide what standard you're going to live by from now on. Not what social media says, not what your ex thinks, not what your guilt whispers, your standard, because at the end of your life, the critics will be gone, the comments will be gone, the shame tactics will be forgotten. You will be left alone with one question. Did I live as myself, or did I live as someone else's emotional appliance? Make sure your answer is one you can live and die with. If you want more content that breaks these patterns down and gives you tools to protect your mind and your future, subscribe and stay tuned. Because whether the world admits it or not, something has already shifted. And you choosing your peace is not the end of anything. It's the start of your life actually belonging to you.